Welcome, one and all, and thank you, each of you, for joining us tonight. I'd also like to extend a special thank you to the David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies at Harvard, our co-sponsors this evening. And finally, all of our gratitude to poet and scholar Keith Jones, who will introduce our readers tonight. Thank you, Keith. First, I have a few brief remarks. Many of you who attend Poetry Room events know that we often convene over at the Edison and Newman Room in Houghton Library, the Poetry Room's administrative mothership. This year, that room is closed while Houghton undergoes an extensive renovation that will ultimately make the library more accessible for generations to come. We look forward to welcoming all of you back there when the library reopens in the fall of 2020. And while tonight we rather miss that grand room and its incunabula-lined walls, our brief sojourn in the Forum Room this year gives us occasion to remember a bit of ye olde Poetry Room history and to celebrate this, our physical home, for this year marks the Poetry Room's 70th in Lamont. Back in 1949, when the Poetry Room reopened in its newly designed space just next door, formerly it had been located on the top floor of Widener, the space, especially designed for listening to poetry recordings, was wildly popular. In that first spring semester, students signed for headphones over 4,000 times, reported Professor Frederick C. Packard, Jr. in his Library Journal article dated 1950, for an average of 50 headphone users a day. In the Poetry Room, listening was communal but quiet, together but separate, each listener cocooned in the world of her headphones. Though she might be bodily adjacent another body, library silence prevailed over the room. The Forum Room, which one could reach via the curator's office back in the day, functioned as the loudspeaker of the Poetry Room. Here, poetry was broadcast, either live in the form of readings, as we have tonight, or from a special two-turntable console around which students gathered, according to Professor Packard, for poetry concerts. I suspect it isn't just the patina of age on that phrase or the vintage aura imparted by the antique turntable that makes us all chuckle slightly at the notion of a poetry concert. Rather, it's the way concert chafes against our idea of what a poetry reading can and should be. For poetry, even poetry out loud, is no concert, we think. Even poetry out loud does not cause crowds to stomp their collective feet, howl for encores, or hold up their lighters, does it? It doesn't even move us to collective action or give us a shared sense of vigil and community, or does it? If there's anyone qualified to shake up our ideas of what a poetry reading can and should be, and so to truly celebrate the Poetry Room's commitment to expanding those ideas, then it's our readers tonight. To introduce them, please join me in giving a warm welcome of applause, even raise your lighter if you have one, for Keith Jones.
Thank you. Yeah? I'm wondering, this looks so inviting here. So I'm so tremendously grateful to be here this evening and to have been asked to introduce and thus actually kind of inhabit and dwell with these poets' work over the last month. It's been a wonderfully, deeply enriching study or course of study for me. So I'm going to dispense with the biographies because they are here on your beautiful letterpressed program. And instead, thank you, Woodbury Room. Instead, I'm going to be a bit insubordinate and more gestural by responding in kind to the poets this evening. So, 1. I'd say quietude in these poems is ruinous. Out of the silence that is the, quote, buzzing, Noel suggests, not just hemispheric, but cerebral, land and cerebellum, one thought. 2. What does time equal? Postage stamp inquiries, waterborne, airborne commemoration? 3. They say, these poems, these poets, I essay you. 4. I have given you repertoire, the archive beyond the scripted event. As Noel puts it, the raggedness of wonder. 5. Speed, every letter, consonant blend, or syllabic pause, a kind erudition. Word or phrase, clause, lineation, caesura, rhyme, near rhyme, or accident. We are here tonight in the movement of speech's doing and undoing, each aspect and echo, an accelerant. 6. Every inch of the letter, the syllabic, the corner, the street, the bodega, the archipelago, the art gallery, the disjunctive standpoint of critique. 7. Each of us, these poems say, poetry in the broadest sense, are the meanings we accrue by breath. Where or what is our boundary? 8. Rich aggregates, flow of the flow is lost in time, in space, in memory, escapades of enchanted thought. Let us disenchant our libidinal selves. 9. Alienation and belonging wed. One thinks of our age's estrangement, late capital in the colonial machine. Quote, riptide sucks the body down, unquote, Wilson will write. Who are we but infinite? 10. Being seen in the seeing we do and undo, what binds us and what we are unmade by, in our own makings and mappings. McSweeney will write, quote, now songbirds are circling your head. How brilliant, how strange you have become. What a current, unquote. 11. These poets register tiny elements of signals, alarms, the vertebrae of massive fragments, whole bodies of beings we cannot point to, but dream to reconstruct. Is it language I am speaking when I ask you to impostor yourself, to ventriloquize a new you? 12. We are not yet in or of an age that can be named. This unnaming our strength. 13. These poems score, sing, transcribe, clip totalities. We are the trembling voices of, in transit, amputated and fecund, grief and cistern, quote, that anguish which is English, unquote, as M. Norbesi Philip writes. 14. We are in the realm tonight of collage and parataxis. We learn to unlisten to the linearity of ourselves, our only redemption. 15. We are outside the inside of the particular by way of vast mappings. Let us disestablish the silences we're in, the bridal song of broken genre. 16. The essay of the essay is encryption. I tell you to freefall what knowledge is, but only by way of argument. Who is held with or held by powers knowing? What or who is the source of our voice? 17. Illest insurgencies ancestral, a poetics of crisp, shattering sounds, ensemble-like, atmospheric, felt shifts between the seemingly merely quotidian and those moments of that fluttering instance inside when the quotidian ceases to exist and we are in the realm of the transcendent, something inside the inside that takes flight. 18. There is a looking up, a looking out that language does. I feel less lonely tonight, these poems say. Quote, think of how and where we begin, unquote, Wilson suggests. 19. The non-contiguous. Perhaps we need to declare tonight that we are in the presence of the total movement of another event, the continuation of us here as an axe of transfer, the cutting into, the severing of, the unitary voice, the singular language, the one face or body we never are, no matter what the master says. 20. I am looking at you tonight, my orality, the book I am tied to, the book I flee. You, the diachronic, the heterogeneous, the summoned and unsummoned both, the under, the over, the next to, the not there. These are poets this evening of extraordinary importance to our dislocation in time, in space, in embodiment, in language, in nationhood and selfhood, in history and in thought. Which is to say, they suture us as and in an urgently plural now, radiating outwardly radiance and openings without end. Please help me in welcoming Joelle McSweeney, Urayoán Noel and Ronaldo V. Wilson.
Well, thank you to everyone for being here on what could end up being kind of a nasty night in all the senses of that word. Nasty outside, nasty inside. And also, of course, to everyone who's hosting us, and it's really wonderful to be doing this performance from inside your words and to kind of like bloom from in there and to be here with my brother poets. I'm really excited. And I'm just going to get into this, if that's okay. So the things I'm going to read tonight are from this book I have forthcoming in the spring called TOXICON and Arachne. And I get into the two parts of that. It's a double volume of poetry, and I'll read from both volumes. And I'm going to start with TOXICON. And when I was writing TOXICON, I was thinking, of course, of Plato's Pharmakon and this idea that writing could be both the poison and the cure. And I thought, at the same time, I was thinking about lyricism itself and what makes lyricism so intense. What is the kind of essence of lyricism? And I began thinking under the influence and reaction to Plato's Pharmakon that perhaps it was a toxin. And perhaps I would write a toxicon, a book of poems that would be a series of poisoned arrows, because when you look into the etymology of toxicon, or toxic, you find that it's related to arrows, and specifically poisoned arrows, and by another jump, possibly with Amazons in classical thinking. So I'm going to read to you from my book of poems that were meant to function like a quiver full of poison arrows. And the first one is called vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve means, it refers to like a wandering nerve that, again, is etymological. Among other things, the vagus nerve is responsible for what you can choke down and what you might choke up. So that's what this poem's interested in. Vagus nerve. Like a star who snuffs out its own path, like a tsar who wears a many-beamed trinket on his chest, like a target for a taser or a laser-guided stent, quasering throb that knocks the breast of the open-going vessel, fist-sized rent or cardiac event, vein choked with the plush that coats the stag's racked, stoke gland or glitch, pumping out error in the constellation Lyra, the second most glamorous star, the second to be daguerreotyped and assassinated, stepping out of its car, galactic half-life, neural leap, no wider than a single bacterium's weak air's hairline, who chokes up at the opera, eyes glued to his lorgnette, ting-ting, in the operating theater, where the gods all cluster at the trompe-l'oeil dome, and suppose an even more monstrous eye looks back. Who can choke down the view whole a pupil? Who can take the whole thing down on his knees in the back room, on his back, in the sacristy, and vomit it back up on the bar, on the altar, on the street outside the viper room? Who chokes on the skein, unwinding from his bolt like a colt's mane, extravagance, consciousness, prize sheep that can bleat through its cutthroat pleat that can spread like blood on the waves and fetch a price that makes the wind rise and hurl fleets at the future. Nerves pinch at the side and hold the garment up in rictus grin and say, alive, whatever's too much is the price, like a dog returns to its vomit to appraise it once again and cart it off for a price, while the neck of that doggy star can bend. So this next poem was written for Alejandra Negrete. So in 2015, in Mexico City, the journalist Ruben Espinosa was assassinated. And when he was assassinated, the women who were working in his apartment were also murdered. But when this was originally reported on, it was just Ruben Espinosa and domestic workers were murdered. And so there was a movement in Mexico City among the domestic workers, people to say the name of the slain women. And this is a poem for Alejandra Negrete, which I'm speaking in response to her murder and as a way of saying her name. But I am the speaker. I'm certainly not speaking for her in any way. Here we go. Belit, belit. I get my neck out for the knife scene. A green smell, a green scene, because the nose bone's so close to the brain bone, and the brain doesn't have a bone, only a series of seawalls and sea barriers. Tennis balls roll oafishly over that sea and knock against the blood-bane barrier. A tennis brat oaths and curses, every kind of lapsus, every slip of the tongue, marshy, licky, metacarpals, flight of women chased into the sky, commingled constellations, spine bones and breastbones, finger bones and ankle bones, skyline and strip mall, stape and stirrup, platform sandal, skinny jean. Alejandra Negrete, executed in her bathroom on her first afternoon. The sound we call static is really full of activity, percussing and injuring itself and sending the message back through the seashell to the air canal to beat against the heart. How long can it beat itself up? A fucked up clock radio broadcasts its handful of beats like gravel hurled at a seawall, bursts its plastic carapace apart. The heart of time. Hurl that phrase like money from the coach of death, made of pulp, germs, and linen, the blood of slaves, the work of women. Even Baudelaire in his crown of syphilis wanted to work harder every day, wanted to become a clock of work. It rains, it hurts. Crown of thinking, jacket of spleen, jacket of little complaining proteins cosseting the nerve, full metal jacket, magazine of coquettes touring the Louvre on the arm of Baudelaire, blushing into his notebook, blushing into a squib, even a kind of cream dissolving into the soup, even a kind of t-shirt round the torso of the teenager who was taking a break in the grave, in the mass grave like a mall, breaking up with her boyfriend, reclining in her little plastic sheath. It's raining ropes. Which teen will fly out on the rope swing into the soup, her body jerking the afternoon thick as carrageen, its album of albumin, its cream-laid pages, jerk-off azimuth bitumen, bitter secretion in the back of the mouth, wing of madness, mass carapace that spasms, all the bones locked together and wing into the air as a clock strikes, as a thought strikes its crazy gong. The rope breaks, the teen plunges into the same river. Sound keeps traveling, and then it is gone. And then it comes back like an aftertaste. How much death can swim? How long after eating? Il pleut, it rains, ropes of cardiac tissue. Time rope swings, credit union bone fragments, platform sandals, 2-hour commutes. It rains all death's afternoon. So in addition to writing sort of longer poems, I also, for this book, wrote some sonnets. So these are sonnets that are infected by and are for the tuberculosis that was in Keats's lungs. So these are like fan mail for Keats, but they're also a little bit contaminated. I'm just going to read 2 or 3 of these. There's a whole crown. I read about the tubercle at night and I went under. As a crime scene can excite a drop of lumen to exude its hit of lights, I shed wet light. I wrap the motel room in light. I carry knives bladed with sputum and an instinct for spite, like a tree that reaches upward from the heat and wants to burn, or lay down in the slurry for the churn to paper. Write me down, chum me, make me into chyme, spit me out to lay in sawdust like a germ, then burn me. I release a noxious smell. Dose me with aminoglycosides till I give in, then lay me in your litter. I'm a threat to life, a violent butter. I'm a threat to life, a violent butter. I spread my toxic inklings like a cloud seeding drone and drop on crops my shake of violet water. As the clotted vena cava sucks dye for the camera, a violent thought turns all my justs to anger. A fist of cloud breaks the crowny crater which vomits up its own grand crew, palpates the sternum of the sky for ulcerations. Oh, fish in flume, resting on your mutagenic breasts, who do you give your milk to? Oh, mouth that cannot close, oh, planet cleft, with what cache of weapons do you lean on as you dream in your pleural cavity, desertified, depressed? Bad host, you clutch your guest. Bad host, you clutch your guest. Green seam fluoresces in night vision, signature of heat and flesh. Green ghost lifts headline to the camera, proof of life, washed white by sudden flash. From satellite, Earth turns on its spit like a gut infloresced with bad intentions. A god descends with gifts of poetry and plague. He lights up factory hens, a baffling intervention. They tote their viral load on wheel, on wing, on breast, transmigrate the globe and upload souls to heaven. Oh, Victor Bird, oh, Vector, I am like you, a non-state actor, death-fletched, alive, immune to all elixirs. So one more. Like any light now breaking in the sky, I am the arrow. I ride and I decline. My throat's an ulcerated weapons cache where radioactive gun sites bleed their toxins in groundwater. Birds rear up deranged. Their mitochondria are scrambled. They cannot steer by stars. I'm as disheveled. My lungs raise 2 black flags inside a warning. Boil like frogs, flap, release fawn-colored scum. Skimmed from my lips, my only utterance, my spit is studied for its signs. Gross Sybil. When death leans in, his staff's encircled by a viper, I adorn him with my spittle, with my cipher. There's a lot of those. Well, actually, there's 14. There's 14 of those toxic sonnets. So the last thing I'm going to read from this part of the book is a poem called Vesica Piscis, which is a very dirty-sounding phrase, and it is a little bit dirty, but it really refers to the almond-shaped frame around an icon of Christ in like Orthodox iconology of Christ, so this kind of like almond shape that Christ sits in when he represents the wisdom. It's also been compared to a swim bladder, which is what Vesica Piscis also means, and some people also think it resembles lady parts. So it has this strange shape that does all this. It's lady parts, a swim bladder of a fish, an almond, mandorla, and the seat Jesus sits in when he is speaking wisdom to you. So, of course, I had to sit there, too. And this is what came out. So this is the last thing I'll read from Toxicon, and then I'll just read 1 or 2 things from Arachne. Under the minarets and worm casings, with a star-shaped proboscis and my eyes wormed shut, feeling my way towards a radiant Byzantium, I wish I were, with 1 foothold on the first rung of the helix, with 1 nodding beatitude and 1 nodding felicitude, follicule of felicitude, pedunculus of beatitude, phallically knocking against my brow idiotically, with 1 pseudo-floral detonator, with 1 episode of foxing, water going predacious across the fields of the page, with 1 footfall loud enough to nestle in the fox's ear, delicious pest, delicious pestilence, delicious omen that waves its flag over the town, with 1 pen stroke tapering the shape of a flight feather, with 1 heat signature riding it down. I wish I was a hole in the ground, a crossed out character, a negative caret, the weight of nothing, something to weigh nothing against. I wish I was a cosmic remainder, comic book rendering, fast on my spit, stutter of fat in the coals that makes the equation wobble and the calculator sputter forever, low like a likelihood without the stench of the probable, that mammalian stench of lifelong leaning towards an outcome or an odor that can't be named or grasped. It takes the shortest route to the brine of the brain through the Byzantine sinus. I wish I was the heel of the hand that finds the beam of the nose bone, the molecule steaming out of the kernel to excite that kernel of the brain. Our house pet, amygdala. Our house pet, a mandala. Our house pet, a mandolin. Our house pet, a mandorla. Our house pet, a mandrake. It wears the genes of a man, smothered up to its neck in the mantle. The soil wears the mother's rimy cloak. So each creature stands up from the sea, must hold an ampule of seawater in the smock pocket of each cell. So each creature rocks with the sea's salinity, sublunary, skull smiling, each coral reef breached out, fish bladder pinched but round, vessel the Godhead wants to swim in, SIM card information written protein, gold glip border underscore indication, the coral reef blacked out, the coral reef gilded swim bladder. With the right hand he makes the oracle gesture, which indicates he is speaking or about to speak. The fish bladder, the square root of 3, the equilateral triangle, is speaking or about to speak. The swim bladder of a bleak, the swim bladder of a rud, the leaky ladder in the blood, the ladder stoking transcribbles DNA, the Haribin fluke, its swim bladder, its Vesica Piscis, where the Godhead sits, enthroned in protein, in hemoglobin, enrobed, enthroned, and enthroned, narrow road of the aerobe, green freedom of the anaerobe, enrobed in heat, enrobed in the vent, enrobed in the ventricle, the Godhead in majesty, any letter in majuscule, the visual cue for utterance, raised hand of the orator, the finger which traced the line, To the horizon line, the trajectory of weapons instead of lung, angle of descent instead of lungs, bubble in the brain, eustachian antennae, pneumatic duct, rete mirabile, where the blood flows backwards, leaching and guttering, its oxygen channel, its oxygen dump, the protein umbraiding, the bleached reef, shards in the sea, like shards in the grave, and only a mother could sieve them back up, piece these shards back together, train them up the dead ladder, dead sons and dead daughters, dead husbands, granddaughters, the whole smashed up reef of the smile, of the skull, in the vessel of the grave, the swim bladder, all the teeth come chattering back home, and all the joints come knocking and rehearse the jittery footfalls of the folk dance, falling backwards into step with the beat of the sonar, of the comeback, of the regnant king in his bathoscope, returning in his vessel, in his miraculous net, in his swim bladder to survey the bath escape, to smash it up as he did in the beginning, to lower his ray of harm, to deal his shattering rays, the first blue crack in the blasting cap of day. Well, so that's the Toxicon. That's the book I was writing and sending around and trying to find a publisher for. I was in a rush to do it because I was pregnant and I was about to have my baby. So I did all of that. The book was out there floating around, and then I had my baby, and she was born with an unexpected birth defect. And she was born with an error in her diaphragm, and she couldn't take a breath. And she lived for 13 days, and then she was gone. So into the first part of the book is Toxicon, but into that part of the book crashes Arachne, which is my baby's name. And so I'm just going to read you a poem from Arachne. Everything is a little scrambled up from me pushing all this paper around on here. Hold on. I'll read you two poems. The first one is a villanelle, and it is set in South Bend, where I'm living. So it's a Rust Belt villanelle. This is a poem for coming back home from the NICU without the baby, which is just as sad as it sounds. You can imagine, it's just that bad. Post-NICU villanelle. Evening wear, the heron unfolds like a glove in the sky because it's spring. Peels back to expose the cool wrist of evening wear. The hero peels off his armor and walks around the bedroom flayed because it's spring. It's spring. The vets go down to the park on bikes with their bedrolls, their desert camo, evening wear, even to sleep on the breast of the lawn in spring. Sweet rain, with your radioactive pearl seeding, the eyelet ribbon in your braid. This evening, wear as lightly as you can upon her grave, but do not actually erase yourself from the scene. You make the spring come. And I consider that one a god who sits by your crib side and watches your monitor as evening wears on. Your green cursor blinks, your high alarm rises. A detonator is depressed, then released, and some fate arrives like spring in cardiac collapse. But before that, your unfocused newborn's eyes pearl up from your elsewhere. At the camera's eye, the heat lamp, your nurse, your father, and me, we for once align. Oh, my sore eyes in spring. As flower appears into flower and flowers, that odor unfolds, a cotton diaper newer than a newborn, not even once worn, the no scent of soap or air. I almost wrote hope, but no hope. And every no evening, infant, no nothing, spring, you collapse and collapse. Some flower lays its cool, clean hand across my eyes, and blind, I inhale you everywhere, nearby and leaving like spring. And here's another poem also from that spring, and I will end on this one. Look forward to hearing the other poems for tonight. This is called Simon the Good. So one of the things that's consistent, so one of the reasons we're publishing Toxicon and Arachne together, and I really thank my editors at Nightboat Books for that, is that Toxicon had this set of tropes that are in Toxicon kind of predict the tragedy that was going to happen. I mean, it's all about toxicity and defects and gestations and things. And then at the same time, the force of the Arachne poems is to totally rewrite Toxicon and rewrite what it was about. They seem to belong together in some terrible, fated way. And one of the things that runs across them is just earworms. Like, as I was doing Vesica Piscis, I had that folk song, I Wish I Was a Mole in the Ground, was like an earworm in that song. And then this song has just Simon Le Bon of Duran Duran rules this poem for some reason. And I have another poem that's called "And I Might Find Her If I Looking Like I Can," which is from Rio, and it's nothing to be proud of, but that book exists too. So as Lamar Burton would say, read the book to find out. But here is that's good advice too. But here's the poem I'll end on. It's called "Simon the Good." I'm the matron king of hell. In yoga pants and a disused bra for a laurel, I shatter the scene inside your shimmering ear. Like a ransom scene filmed through a shattered transom, I smear in my glamour. I make as if to justify the ways of God to man. It's my ticket in. It's why God lets me speak here, Christostomed on his couch, even though I'm derived from hell, hellish, Hellenish, Hellenic. I'm the hangman in this version, pegged up in mine pegged jeans by mine ankles and inversion. Mine manacles are monocles. I spit out the key and squinty through the keyhole back at the unquittable world. In my raiment of gummy sunglasses and crow's wings for epaulettes, I delicately squawk from the edges of things, balance unsteadily on the bust of the goddess, squawk, Aeschylus, Euphorion, and I'm gonna tell you something so bad that when you hear it, you're gonna know it's true. Like all the worst stories, it comes from the heart and it goes there too. Back here in St. Joseph County, a struck duck flies crown first into the asphalt and is stuck there with its brains for adhesive, like someone licked the pavement and sealed it, a postulette with its cartoon feet in the air and its Jeff Koon wings. That's roadkill for you, realer than real. And cars mill by with their wheels in reverse, heavy as chariots in a dealership commercial, and I am walking my dog by the river, a matron from hell. Look on me and despise. I am like the river, thick as beer and with a sudsy crown. There, polyethylene bags drape the banks like herons, and a plastic jug rides a current with something like the determination that creases mine own brow as I attempt to burn my lunch off. The determination of garbage riding for its drain. Hey, Nani, it's spring, and everything wears a crown as it rides its thick doom to its no place. Gently brushed by pollen, by the wings of Hymenoptera, like a helicoptera performing its opera all above Indiana, bearing the babes away from their births to their births in the NICU in Indianapolis. Unapolis, moron God. Moron God, you've turned me diaphobic. The greasy tracks you leave all over the internet, the slicey DNA and the scrambled chondria, the torn genes, panic like space invaders in an arcane video game. Oh, spittle pink blossoms. The tree don't need no more. Shook down to slick the pavement like a pay slip. You disused killer app. Each thought strikes my brain like the spirals in a ham. Pink, pink for Easter, sliced by something machinic. Each thought zeroes in, flies hapless and demented, festooned like a lawn dart, finds its bit of eye, spills its champagne, split of pain. Then we come to our senses, suddenly alone, in the end zone. That's it. Thank you.
Good evening, buenas noches. Juliésimas, variaciones, Julia de Burgos, variations. My cry that is no more mine, but hers and his forever, the comrades of my silence, the phantoms of my grave. Farewell and Welfare Island. Inútilmente estiro mi camino sin luces, como muerto sin sitio se sublevan mis voces. Oh, mar, no esperes más. Poetry is just the name tras de la poesía. For our faint embodied sound nos queda lo sonoro. Music once it's not around, sin palabra ni coro. Ash in lockstep with the flame. Cuerpos en entropía. Streets still summoning the same. La calle todavía. Shadows watch buses sever. Pide sombras. No cruces. Concrete. This war will never, sin ver los autobuses, end. Our breath is the front line. La guerra que respiro. My cry that is no more mine. Inútilmente estiro, but hers and his forever. Mi camino sin luces. War, as in the wounds we brought. La guerra que se trajo with us from tropical ports, de puertos tropicales, making us echoes of sorts. Nos hizo sucursales, boneyard songs, islands of thought de huesos, un refajo shaped by blood currents and clot de islas en el tajo of empire. Then Julia gave, de imperios, soy de gloses, us back our ghosts, dared the slave, de Julia, la conoces, to speak to her violence, bajo un cielo de litio. The comrades of my silence, como muerte sin sitio, the phantoms of my grave, se sublevan mis voces. Julia de Burgos. It's a show and tell time, so. There we go. So this is from a triptych I just did this weekend, which is the reason we're setting it up impromptu with the wonderful La Impresora, which is a project of the poets Nicole Cecilia Delgado and Amanda Hernandez in Puerto Rico. And La Impresora, Nicole Cecilia ran before that Atarraya Cartonera, the first cartonera publisher in the Caribbean, and she's been an essential cultural worker, much more than just a poetry publisher, but an activist in terms of imagining, right, in the context of austerity, even before, right, Hurricane Maria, different forms of literary community, different forms of activism, centering the works of marginalized poets, unaffiliated poets. So I thought I would share some of what we came up with. And Nicole came up with a wonderful idea of doing a tróptico, which is a triptych that's also optic for the tropics, right? So I'll do this little, let me try to trip hop this triptych. So the poet Esteban Valdés is a Mexican poet who's lived in Puerto Rico for many years, and he published in 1977 a book called Fuera de Trabajo, which is a classic of concrete poetry in Puerto Rico, where there's not much of it, right? And it has a very kind of proletarian, but at the same time conceptually brilliant sensibility. Valdés's sonnet is all lines of 14 stars, so I thought, how could I translate that? Riffing also on the idea of Julia de Burgos, right, as a Puerto Rican poet who lives in New York and writes these poems in English, and thinking about a way to pay homage, right, to these innovative projects of self-translation, right, across a kind of pan-Boricua spatialities. So hopefully what I end up reinforcing in both cases is the untranslatability of these poets, of Julia de Burgos and the décimas that I made out of her refrains, her lines as refrains, and of Valdés's stars. So. Ars. Tars. Stars. And tars. In stars. Teen stars. Our teen stars. Your teen stars. Our teen stars. 14 stars. Cool. See, I lost my way. I told you this untranslatable. So let's try. Let's do this a different way. What can we do here? Okay. That's just to gross out Ronaldo. So just let's do. Os, ros, tros, stros, astros, eastros, se astros, se astros, or se astros, torce astros, torce astros, 14 astros. And so I have these for sale. That's my indie capitalist moment. So you're supporting me, but you're supporting the wonderful people at La Impresora, and ask me more about them, because I'd love to also build bridges. And Nicole has worked with many wonderful publishers, including folks like Ugly Duckling. So, okay. Check this out. Okay, cool. So thank you to Mary, thank you to Keith, thank you to all the wonderful people here, and to read with such, with poets that I've learned so much from, and I'm so happy to continue reading and learning from. So the rest I'll do will be from Buzzing Hemisphere, but I thought I would do it a different way, given the shout out to Puerto Rico. I would kind of reverse engineer some of the walkie-talkie poems, walking, talking, teching, right? These began as kind of smartphone improvisations, and largely out of a need to work through my relationship to spaces that are kind of effectively loaded, and thinking about translating space, right? And so this speech, then and now threatened by developers, right? Which is where I learned to swim, right? Which I have all these personal and family associations with, was where I did the first sequence of at least publishable, right? Walkie-talkie techies. And what I'll do is I'll read for you then the translation. As this project evolved, I became confident enough to do bilingual walkie-talkie techies, so improvise in both languages and think about the non-equivalences in the translations. Walkie-talkie-techie.com is your one-stop shop to see what I've been up to. So that's the most recent one is maybe 2018. I've been taking a break and thinking how I can return to it. But this is from this first batch, I want to say 2011, maybe early 2012. The original first appeared in my book Los Días Porosos, published in Guatemala, and then the translation appears here, right, as another instance of self-translation.
Por aquí pasan aviones.
Por aquí pasan aviones,
Pero me interesa otro tipo de tránsito.
pero me interesa otro tipo de tránsito,
Otro tipo de trance.
otro tipo de trance. percance de hablar
y saberse cansado.
y saberse cansado.
Hados al nado
Hados al nado
y lenguas al lado.
y lenguas al lado.
Silabarios.
Silabarios.
Lo que queda del mar.
Saliva, lo que queda del mar.
Ser salado.
Ser salado.
Hacerse a un lado.
Hacerse a un lado.
Querer ser alado.
Querer ser alado. Transportado.
Desbordarse.
Desbordarse.
Transitar.
Transitar.
Incitar.
Incitar.
Recitar.
Recitar.
Desvestirse.
Desvestirse.
De vez en vez.
De vez en vez.
De voz en voz.
De voz en voz.
Sin visiones.
Sin visiones.
Ni revisiones.
Ni revisiones.
Solo.
Solo.
Sin provisiones.
Sin provisiones.
Lo provisorio.
Lo provisorio
De
de este promontorio de voz.
de voz. Para donde salgo.
Para donde salgo.
algo.
Buscando algo. Valgo lo que valen
Valen
estas sílabas,
estas sílabas.
estos sonidos,
Estos sonidos.
estos silencios.
Estos silencios. ¿Qué más escape?
Airplanes go by here, but I'm interested in another type of transit, another type of trance, happenstance of speaking and knowing oneself tired, fates afloat and tongues beside them, syllabaries, saliva, what's left of the sea, briny beings stepping aside, wanting to be winged, transported, overflowing in transit, inciting, reciting, undressing from time to time, from voice to voice, without visions, without revisions, alone, without provisions, the provisionality of this promontory of voice I'm headed toward. Looking for something. I'm worth as much as these syllables, these sounds, these silences. Is there an outlet beyond the vitrine of the machine where I contemplate myself? The temple of voice I carry within me, desecrated like this island, without herds, lost territory, lost thread, lost halo. The hologram amid the mist of voice, of yous, of thous, of others, of flecks, of shreds, of traces. Behind the voice, there is another voice, another symbol, another piston, another parenthesis, another symptom, another terror, another disorder. Burning island, heat of voice, shared voice, dispensed voice, departing voice, splayed from skin to skin, from land to land, where no one comes from and no one goes. What's left is the machinery. Machinations all at hand, instantaneous, but mine is the instant that wanders, that staggers, without stumbling, without transfers, mere steps, mere poses, always here yet always looking for another city, without skyscrapers, lampposts, nor dance floors, merely an embodied city, a city we claim in as much as alien, a city ours, a city scoured. I'm still here between urchin and eros, a border being still searching. Facing up to the difference, the refraction, fraction, usufructo, to be the blanket of breeze amid all these machines, amid all this disquiet, to be the thirst, to be the sediment, to be the document, the mind, mind, extension of body, mente, extensión de cuerpo, machine, extension of body, máquina, extensión de cuerpo, voice, extension of body, voz, extensión de cuerpo, machine body, cuerpo máquina, island body, cuerpo isla, continent body, cuerpo continente, hemisphere body, cuerpo hemisferio, collapsing, colapsados, into one another, uno y todos, lapses, lapsos, space-time, espacio-tiempo, without continuity, sin continuidad, discontinuous, discontinuos, en rupture, en la ruptura, en rapture, el rapto, without a locus, in locus, localized, venidos, amenos, in transit, en tránsito, en diaspora, en diáspora, disparate, dispares, dispersed, disparos, disappeared, desaparecidos, the voice I am, la voz que soy, and the voice that I have been, y la voz que he sido. That was kind of heavy and long, so I'll just do a couple of kinder, gentler pieces. So these are some alphabet poems. So archipiélago, brillo ciego, delta, estuario, flujo global, hemisferio, isla, jardín, kermés, labor, multitud naciente, ñáñigo, oligarca, paraíso quimérico, rascacielos, selva, tránsito usual, vendaval, Washington, Xochimilco. Ya, zarpamos. Archipelago, brilliant cityscape, delta, estuary, flows, global, hemispheric island, jurisdiction, keypad, labor multitude, numbered oligarchs, paradise quicksand, rays, skyscraper totems, underground visions, Washington, Xochimilco, yesterday's zeitgeist. Anómalas bestias, criaturas desamarradas, escoria feliz, gimiendo hasta incinerarse jubilosamente, querosén lingüístico, matorral neuronal, ¡ñu! Ornitorrinco, pingüino, 500 ribosomas somos, trapos unicelulares, virus, whisky, xilema, yerbajo, so. Anomalous beasts, creatures dreaming effortlessly free, groaning hurt in jubilations knowing lockstep, mired neurons, oxen, platypuses, quasars, ribosomes, saplings, teeming unicellular viruses, wakeful xylem, yearning zoo. I'll do one last one. This one is inspired by Latasha Nevada Diggs' work, right? Because how can you invoke, right, poetry that pushes us, right, to the beauty that is the limit without centering her work. So this one's the same, self-translation in alphabet form, but Haitian Creole, right? So please forgive my crappy Haitian Creole, but like inspired by Latasha, I tried to do the research and work on my pronunciation, and also moving beyond just the English-Spanglish binary, right? Both English and Spanish are languages of empire, thinking about Creoles as what results, right, when empires clash, but also as kind of differentials, right, within the homogenizing force of empire. Environ, bien-air, chante devant vous, instige, flamme, gauche, ange, il, j, connaissance, langue, messie, nation, orphelin, pep, raman, semble, tampe, uni, voyage, ouais, yeah, zéro. Around blissful chants, dawn entices flame, gulping hip island juice. Knowing languages measure, nations, orphan people, rarely similar. Tempests unite voyagers, witnessing yesterday's zero. So I got time for two more? Okay, okay, cool. Well, you asked me for weirdness, so here's a little weirdness. Let's do, not that my own natural charms aren't enough, but let's do this. United States, Estados Unidos, American anagrams via anagram app for smartphones. So I should mention the alphabet poems I was doing were mostly mine, but I thought the virtuosity of them was like less interesting, right? So I then ended up dirtying up my own translations through word generator apps and replacing what I came up with their own alternatives. So there's a little bit of that here. I did not write it, I just composed it. I arranged it. Steadiest nut, sedatest unit, sauteed tints, tainted suets, status tune, tune distaste, situated nest, untasted sight, attend sweets, tensest audit, anisette dust, estate nudis, ansiest duet, nastiest duet, nattiest dews, siesta nutted, tastiest nude, tautness diet, tetanus deist, dentist saute, a student's tie, a dustiest net, seated I stunt, attested in us, test stun idea, test us detain, US, tainted set, tut site sedan, unstated site, Sunday tit set teased its nut, testes, unit ad used, tatted sin, AIDS test tune, two, sadist teen, audit 10 set, sad scene, tutti, dust it, senate, edit at sunset, need a stud, I, eaten dust sits, attuned, sights, stayed, tenet, us, is unattested. Attitudeness, states untied. Estados Unidos. Need the translation. Ideando sustos, oso desnudista, tisús ondeados, desusando tíos, suites donados, sudando tiesos, sudando estíos, deudas sin soto, dosis atuendos, sudo desatinos, sudoso tiendas, un o dos deístas, su destino, odas, sud sonó dietas, tenis o sudado, situados dones, tusando dioses, sudantediosos, satines, dudoso, tesinas, dudoso, sos etnias, dudo, sos sostenuidad, tu sentido, soda, estadios nudos, nudistas, sedosos, sudantes, sidosos, sudaste sonido, tendías sudoso, tosías desnudo, sudas tosiendo, sudantes oídos, sudantes odios, asentís, dudoso, odias tus dones, situad sondeos, id, usad sonetos, desoíd asuntos, dioses o tundas, gnosis o dudaste. Edad sino susto, entidad sos uso, usando desisto, desusado insto, estudio sondas, desanido susto. And let's see. Okay, let's do this. In the spirit of, again, the untranslatable, and I think I'll shout out Rosemary. So this is my little MLA moment here. This is the Sor Juana. You can't be a Latin Americanist and cool and not shout out Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, right? Feminist, queer, right? Transnational, all the words that matter to us, right? Sor Juana was there. So this is a sonnet of Sor Juana's, right? That I spoke into my phone, right, for voice recognition software set to English. So here's the phone-generated version of Sor Juana, and hopefully what it will affirm is Sor Juana's, again, radical untranslatability. You will see how bro-y the translation is and how fierce and fearless Sor Juana is, right? So I'll do one line of Sor Juana's and one line of the phones, right? You Have the Nice Weather is actually well, it's explained in the notes, but it's the translation of the title. Buy the book. En perseguirme, mundo, ¿qué interesas? In Tennessee, you phone book, you use me, sucks. ¿En qué te ofrendo cuando solo intento? In Get Still Friends, one before leaving, bro. Poner bellezas en mi entendimiento. For me, an ass off, send me and send the info. Y no mi entendimiento en las bellezas. You know me, and in the me, Las Vegas, us. Yo no estimo tesoros ni riquezas. Doing with the mall, the sodas, progress sucks. Y así siempre me causa más contento. Yeah, CC on the outside, Moscone Center. Poner riquezas en mi entendimiento. When you get up, do you do me? And que no mi entendimiento en las riquezas. So you know an inconvenience, ass kicker sucks. Y no estimo hermosura que vencida. Email to the animal, so Karen, see there. Es despojo civil de las edades. This will see you, benefit added. Ni riqueza me agrada fementida. Do you think it's a matter of cream and be there? Teniendo por mejor en mis verdades. Anyone go for me tomorrow? Read about this. Consumir vanidades de la vida. Cancel me? Too funny. I'm gonna be there. Que consumir la vida en vanidades. Get on some you. I love you there in bunny rabbits. Cool, thank you. And thank you. I'm just going to close with this because my mom is very fond of Boston, and my mom's disabled. I write a lot about just mobility and thinking about just how we fetishize mobility, right? As a scholar of performance, as a scholar of diaspora, right? We think of all kinds of special mobilities, right? And so thinking through disability, right? Epilepsy in my own case, right? But also then physical disability in addition to that in my mom's case, and the kind of shared discovery, right, of a kind of neural, right, history and its relationship to, to class and to place, right, geographies and so on, colonialism, obviously. The work about Urayoán Morales has been super important to me in this process. So I thought I'd shout out my mom then and do this piece, which a moment I thought I was going to lose her, right, and she made it through, and we had to learn to reconnect on numerous levels. So that buzzing hemisphere is folded into this book, although it's not maybe what's gotten the most attention, right? So. Tu experimento en mentalismo, your mind's eye experiment, comienza con la conciencia decapotable, begins with the convertible conscience, la música que te habita, the music that inhabits you, que nombra tu masa púrpura, that names your purple mass. Los vasos conductores, todos, tiemblan sobre el alero. The communicative vessels tremble on the ledge. Se inflama la forma sin memoria. The form without memory is swollen, como una calle llena de ratas sorprendidas, like a street full of rats, por la luz de los helicópteros, stunned by the light from the helicopters que vienen de islas cercanas, that come from nearby islands a tomarle fotos al silencio de tu primera noche, to take pictures of your first night silence, a documentar la pérdida, to document loss, como historiadores del miedo o poetas forenses, like historians of fear or forensic poets. Y es que de ti heredé el hemisferio, and it's just that I inherited your hemisphere. La mano zurda que se cree diestra, the left hand that believes itself right. La ansiedad no de estar vivo, sino de estar. The anxiety not of living, but of being. Hijo de tu malestar, a child of your malaise. Diáspora prematura, premature diaspora. La convulsión febril de mi dualidad, the febrile seizure of my duality. Bilingüe, bisexual, ambidiestro, bilingual, bisexual, ambidextrous. Vivo en la dualidad del signo. I live in the duality of the sign. En la isla que somos y no somos. In the island that we are and that we aren't. En la ciudad que nos acoge y nos mata. In the city that welcomes us and cuts us down. Todos somos avatares de flores. We are all avatars of flowers. En las redes, in the nets where I search for you, donde te busco y te encuentro and find you, pero sé que no eres tú, but I know that it's not you, porque tú te quedaste en aquella habitación because you're still in that room, y yo también, and I am too. Ahora lo que nos toca es sucesión de renaceres. Now we're in line for a series of rebirths. El miedo triunfal de vivir. for the triumphant fear that is being alive, con la boca abierta y llena de arena, with a mouth wide open and full of sand, caracoles en la orilla del tiempo, seashells at the edge of time, donde flotamos sin cuerpo, where we float disembodied, hasta reconocernos, and slow to recognize. And this is where the poem ends, but this is where the voice begins. I'll take 30 seconds more of your time, because I'm broy that way, even though I try to do Sor Juana's feminist translation to cover up. I'm just occupying institutional space. I'm occupying institutional space like we all do, as poets who gig, as poets who riff. Conceptual space is still institutional space. I haven't figured that out. So is diasporic space. I'm gonna play these like if they were guiro or maraca or palitos, putting the wood in Woodbury. That was terrible. Is it better than Ashbury? I don't think so. Didn't Harold Bloom write about Ashbury? We won't be talking about that, fortunately. We're talking about otro tipo de poetría. I'm gonna try it on for size. Sé que no se dice poetría, but deal with it, familia. Esta es la que hay. They asked me to be weird, so I'm just doing what I'm told. I'm colonial that way or colonized or something, but buy my paper bag poetry, which is some weird kind of tenured hipster shit, but sorry, can I say shit at Harvard? No sé. I came in second for a job here. It was kind of weird. At the time, I thought I dodged a bullet because the interview was so weird, but now I meet all you people. It's not so bad after all. You were telling me that this is an island within Harvard. I'm not sure how I feel as an island person about the use of island in that kind of privileged, specialized way, but I guess I do it too. Consider this my John Donne moment. I guess I'm done. Se acabó. Thank you. Gracias.
I'll just set up while that's playing. Where's the second one? Let's just, first one, let's start with the first one. Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, we didn't want them spitting on the floor.
They got a red mouth, red spit. I think I don't know what's.
The color that we had, it was a brass color in the top and a gray or black on the base of it.
September 4th, 2019, 7:31 a.m.
And the top.
Sometimes I recognize the characters, other times I do not recall them,
Out like a
though I am left to go back to the place where I hope to receive them for what they mean and how they might,
a musical horn that people.
I don't know, severe, how they might serve, how they might serve the cough stings at night.
You know, the opening was like a wide cone. Anyway, my grandfather had them in the pool room. That I called the front of the pool room where they played pool.
Yeah.
We call that the pool room, and then we had the gambling joint in the back. And then on the sidewalk area, there was Aunt Mary Ann, Auntie Rosie, and Mommy had a restaurant on the sidewalk cafe. People just walk right in front of the sidewalk on the outside. And we sit and serve food, we sell food out there.
9:48 a.m., August
So we had a
31st.
sidewalk cafe.
It's
You
not too
couldn't
late
sit
to,
down, you could just buy food, right?
it's not too late to return to the question of scholarship.
Buy and
To
walk
not be a
away.
mimic has required an extraordinary amount of work. Return to the quote strange thing and the article by the sea in your archive. 9:50 a.m. August 31st, 2001.
Well, we didn't have chairs in the
A
front.
theory not bound by terror and fear,
You have to
suffering
stand
and
and buy
shame.
your little food.
Lineage is different than rhetorical
And walk away.
sequence, a logic to attempt to describe the impossible.
We had,
It isn't
we had
pain
garbage
laugh
containers
so much as
on each side. One side where you walk into the pool room, where the door was, and one right before you walk around the corner. So they were right on the corner of the restaurant.
You don't give the food away.
I'm just saying, it was a sidewalk restaurant. I don't remember giving food away out there was selling food.
What do you do with the
Thank you,
leftover?
Keith, for that brilliant introduction. I love the
I don't
quotidian
know, Mom.
and the
I'm just a little
enumerative.
boy that- you could buy
Thank you,
food right there and eat.
Joyelle, for teaching us, or me, about duality, deathscapes, and life,
In the garbage can on
and
each side of the
meditation.
restaurant.
Thank you, Ura, for teaching me about explosions between languages and what it means to be a true bear.
I'm just saying that they had it. Can't call it a cafe because you couldn't sit down there and buy the food. And walk away.
How might graphite, working in it to draw portraits, how does it sharpen one's prose, particularly the sentence, its own eye and ear coordinates, exacted through rhythm, structure, and sound? And what about surfaces toggling between paper, video, screen, dance floor? How these scenes of creation for me ask one to reconsider one's awareness of one's body, running, dancing, or simply standing, wandering into a work, whether in writing, drawing, that has no real answer yet.
Or if they go play pool on, like a little hall there.
I had no idea, because I've seen him, but that's where he stays, in my really good friend's house, every single summer. Isn't that funny? And then we had this little conversation
that's
about
the
John
pool.
Waters, and it was just so cool. So
Management makes
it's so
the money.
fascinating the way little things here work in this town. So I
Pay
think it'd be
the,
really nice for her
well,
to
you
come
can
because
pay
it's
us,
not
yes.
like the fanciest place, but the connections here are really substantial.
Now with the game, they say rack 'em. Whoever usually was us, the kids, that racked them and then collected a little dime for another.
I
game.
wanted to do two things today. I wanted to position this poetry reading around habituations. And that means I was interested in moving from paint to paper, from poem to the sentence. I suppose this is about composition. I suppose what I'm attempting to do right now is to compose the moment just last night on a red eye from here to there when the seat would not move back all the way. No, I was not in mint. I was relinquished to the fact that I would not recline. No, I was not inured nor injured, but I was under no certain circumstance nor duress to be unveiling myself into the quotidian. I decided at that moment that I could do one thing, and that is edit.
I made a film for you. I decided to make a few things for all of you or for all of us at this particular moment at the precipice, right in the middle of joy, toying with my own sensitivity, toying with composition. Oh, I thought I looked like Natasha.
Yeah, I am. August 31st, 2019. A theory not bound by terror and fear, suffering and shame. Lineage is different than rhetorical sequence, a logic to attempt to describe the impossible. It isn't pain when I laugh so much as when it appears.
Back where you go out the back with the ambulance joint.
Oh, yeah. I was talking about two things that I wanted to do today, or tonight. I wanted to end with the last paragraph of my book, Farther Traveler. I wrote it some long time ago. And then I wanted to think about how might I move from that last sentence into the pure graphite. Here's the sentence. It's about my father. Here's the paragraph. It's about you. I am close to the dream when I am in the shower. What returns as I wash is when he told us how he's hazed when he retired from the Navy, or maybe it was when we were transferred from Millington to Alameda. I've never heard the word haze before, but he told us they put a Baby Ruth bar in a bowl with lemonade, and they made him eat it, and there was a blindfold moved, I think, and for every moment before that moment, I did not fashion that they made him eat out of a toilet. I thought there was an actual bowl, or maybe when he said bowl, I did not think of the toilet, but something else, something far away from that scene that held and marked the transitions between his job, one life to another, a story that he felt he should describe and to tell his family then. That film was also about eavesdropping. Sometimes a mother has nothing to say. Sometimes a mother's entire family has been assassinated, or maybe one or two. Sometimes when someone is exiled, it is impolite to say, "Mom, can you tell me your story?" Sometimes you have to steal the story in the middle of the night when they are more or less injured, a heart splinted, a leg broken, a breath gone. Sometimes you have to set up a recording device right outside of the window's reach, right up there on the mantle, right there on the precipice. You know, I mentioned it just a few moments before. Right there where the recording device can catch the whispers in the morning. You and your parents are trapped in the same house. I and my parents are trapped in the same moment. We are there, suspended right there. It is all so epiphanic. Here we are, suspended right there, and I listen. I listen to them, and I just let them talk. My father about pool and spittoons. My mother about the Philippines. What are you checking on your telephone just there? The glass is glazing. Are you checking your mail? Are you mail ordering a bride? Are you nervous? Are you imperceptible? I notice every single thing in a room. I'm groomed, Ariana. I was hoping that you would come today. I sent out the ethers and the shock waves without a single email, and I recognized I'd see your face right there, smiling across the room, just like my mother maybe, smiling just out of the hospital, not dead, not really injured, but close to some formation of life. And she told me at that moment, before I showed anyone else these videos, they look nice. And my sister said, "Mom is so sweet." This is when I know that I am successful as a visual artist. This is when I know I can work in graphite, pure otherwise. This is when I know that I can buy whatever I need, first class mint or whatever. This is when I know I'm not broke up in there in a hospital bed or in a hotel. It does not matter much, nor does it matter more. What can I say to be the injured or the injurious or, you know, it's not litigious, it's a ligament. Do you know what I mean? Get with the gale force. Get with the force or what you need to move around the sentence. And I asked myself there as I was drawing, what is the relationship between the sketch and the paragraph, the sentence and the senile, the cipher and the sycophant, the stew, and you know my mom's cooking. It smells up all my clothes. You know, I long for it. I want to get to one story for you before I leave. I want to tell you about a dream that closes out my latest work of art. Oh, I could use that microphone. It's so true. You want to enter the fray of that little black bird. Why, yes, I do. Well, if you want to enter the fray of the black bird, you have to promise yourself that you're going to unveil a dream. But what do you mean? You know, that space between synapse and consciousness. You know, that moment between languages. Some people might call it creolization. Yeah, sure. Or vanilla. Or I'm really hungry. Me too. You too? Yeah. Oh boy. Oh boy. It's over here. You don't ever do this. You don't ever read. Well, I know. Sometimes I read. I can read. I'm not illiterate. Well, this is a challenge for you, Ronald V. Wilson. Are you going to show a video or are you going to read? It depends. It depends how I feel. What do you mean? This isn't silly after all. You are a full professor, aren't you? But only at rank 1. It's okay. Yeah, let's play it. See what happens. I'm so glad we had this time together. I will miss you from the abyss of my heart. It wasn't meant as shame, but the door will close, and you will enter your best life. About those sketches, about those sketches, can you see it louder? It's great. Yeah, it's great. About those sketches, about those sketches, about those sketches. About those sketches. There's my mother in the horizon, just like I like her. Was my discovery this summer. After hours in the studio, hours and hours, I thought, this is interesting. How does this go? Looks good. Compositionally sound. Do we need something here? This is Mina's Alexander's. Mina's family gave this to me. That's pretty. Let's read this story off. If I finish it, I finish it. Dream. With a long wooden ruler, Virgil smacks to death the brown, ugly spider, the death delivered as in similar killings. But this one is energized by its form, a whooping that packs immediately the brown, ugly spider's crouching body into itself. I fell down the stairs, so I can't move my fingers like I used to. Pliable wood bending in the air, snapping lightning fast. The bug flattened between the painted white drawing table and the semi-translucent paper. Virgil ponders the differences between the whooping and the spanking, which are vast while the whooping banks on the event of total surprise. The spanking leaves room for quiet retreat, while the latter, though perhaps not completely ceremonial, some lessons might be learned. The former abandons logic and is all lesson. In Dead Men Talking, Eternal Neighbors, the surgical saws cutting into jaw pain, Death Drop's head is amplified. A screeching pulse, her deceased body on the steel autopsy table out of view. Brunette boy autopsy boater doctor sawing close to the jaw, hopes to reveal the point from where death arose. It's not the jaw. Instead, the head-to-toe search concludes that jaw pain, Death Drop's end, had nothing to do with her visit to the dentist 4 days before, but from a heart attack caused by severe coronary artery disease of which she had no idea. Revealing the elusive answer to jaw pain, Death Drop's sudden death, brunette boy autopsy boater doctor presses the edge of a scalpel against the fat surrounding her dissected heart, the scalpel's tip exposing the yellow plaque, the tiny arteries almost entirely occluded lumen. Zeroing in on the brown, ugly spider, Virgil hit the drawing table with an exact force, and in this force, Virgil attempts to figure his work, if not through the spider's immediate death, then animated in Virgil's protracted life. For who does cartwheels in a field and films it next to the Pilgrim Memorial Monument after discussing by cell a group performance and show he'll join on black composition and molecular form curated by T.D. Spider. But Virgil, when Virgil's tripod later crashed to the sand and the screen fractured, the event cracked open Virgil, who worries that the glass shards and powdery bits could spread from the tips of his fingers to the corners of his eyes as he edits Mueller and the Others. For the short movie, he sets a shed horseshoe crab shell against a silvery, glittery pump's heel, both atop a strip of mustard yellow muslin, placing the iPad's camera in front of the shell's spiny tail and the pump's curved back. But this is before the wind blew the iPad Pro down near the same spot on the beach where Virgil once stared into an icy cold, almost black winter bay thinking, what more do I need to understand form? Virgil meditates on performance as he folds his clothes between glances in the Crown Point Hotel room's closet door mirror. He pops, listening by AirPods to Electric Kingdom, then Egyptian Lover. In the ticking and bass, he hears the prefigurations of Aretha's gospel beats, slowed down in funk too, and recalls a time before Virgil grew and shaved his head when Virgil would pop his black afro sheen curls, eliciting joy, dimples leading to the blood trail. Something survives, he thinks. It emerges in the wide studio, Virgil drawing in solid graphite pencil on paper, gray flecks disintegrating into the middle scale images he constructed before slipping out into the heavy night for a run. At the edge of escape, all Virgil wants to do is to not let hate go, but to meditate on why in the path from the filmic to the drawn. Every mistake counts, each gesture too, of which Virgil becomes more and more aware. A spider drops down from a single web. T.D. Spider holds her hand out, wrist and palm in an L. Let it land there. then raises it back up to a safer height. Virgil's stilled arms, then they're slowly opening, waving into tight ticking, more folding. One could call these overlaps ritual. His insistent movement between memory and discipline. The night root oracle helps Virgil to further understand what lessons might help in such a threshold when she asks, what happens when too much of the process is given away? The artfulness, its spine too revealed. These become the movements of Virgil's body that is both seen as thief and star, threat and lover, healer and damage control. Often it's the case that the freedom that one finds is less in the construction of what's found, but in their effects. This is the self in which Virgil's character, place, being begins to form and is undone, all the while moving in the course of suffering and healing. In the condo, the floor looks like real oak, but they are, in fact, luxury vinyl plank. And the sky is bright fire purple and high pink in the morning, and it's 60 degrees. Virgil is with Butch on the east, and Stream on the west will soon again have his other ankle fixed, this time a socket replacement. And where the other did not properly fuse after the bone was shaved, such will be a gift when the new socket helps to hold up Stream's body in the San Francisco street. How much does one need to let go to enact freedom, to move from color to grayscale and still to produce depth of longing and care? The pencil sharpener's solid graphite shavings are a fine powder, and other places too, longer, curled, and black, which Virgil empties on a paper catch. I like that blowing. It's sexy. Virgil rubs the graphite excess up with the forefinger and uses it to shade in Mama Spine's hair or to begin to capture the fluid contours of her body in motion mid-aerobics and masks and full-body costumes, in or out of Florin convalescent. The black father who drives and crashed is restless and curious even when relaxing. Virgil inherits some of this in each sunset during his residency on the Cape. Asks himself in front of the receding tide how to expand the limits between forms, the body of prose, the body dancing, nexus of reddening light and cooling blue air that fills what is being made to be recorded as much as it is rendered. However intuitive Virgil's sense, however fraught, weight builds as he pushes against this tension. Virgil comes to realize that he hates, often at first sight, which is indeed nothing that Mama Spine, aerobic, or Daddy Dancer taught Virgil. However, it's something Virgil lets course through his body as a learned source text, line of feeling that guides him into the path of the sentence, the mark, the image, the move. But why is Virgil so quick to smash the brown ugly spider, yet lets the sun-orange monarch butterfly thrive in the iPhone portrait pic? As much as Virgil is outside of the dream, he exists somewhere between sleep and morning's opening, the black bodies he sees destroying and being destroyed, even in dreams. Virgil's endless, tricky enmity, for who knows how long the fight lasted there in the small kitchen of the dreamed restaurant. All Virgil understood about the fight was that it was important for him to write it down. The kitchen is small and cramped, and it is a room in which all the decision made express only violence. Blacks on blacks. But here the blacks on blacks are entrepreneurs. The beatings in this context are as easy as the breeze, blowing across the leaves in the Crown Point's quiet back garden. Virgil knows that the dream is both visitation and call, out of which emerges a set of specific questions that ground this process with its intractable queries. What are your sources? How do you read? When did the bat emerge is another question that arises when Virgil thinks, why was the victim an Indian that came in to steal the first pieces of dark fried chicken on the Black on Blacks restaurant kitchen counter? The Indians almost killed her. Simply the attack residing in Virgil's unconscious in every sense is Virgil's problem, which perhaps stems from the vector of hate that drives in his heart. But to resist hate is also something that courses equally in him, especially as he stares into the jetty in Provincetown, MA. Butch tells Virgil that the priest clone came to the U.S. with nothing, from Ireland, and when the priest clone's dark eyes dart across the room to meet Virgil's at Victor's, Virgil looks at the priest clone's husband, MCTM, but the fried chicken in the dream was thick and crisp to almost black, and in the pan stirred itself before the Indian stole it. For this, Virgil wonders, why was the Indian beaten so immediately and viciously by the blacks on blacks? A line of people extended out of the Blacks on Blacks festive door that day, as this was, after all, the first morning of the Blacks on Blacks restaurant opening, and the customers grew hungrier by the second. But suddenly, everyone in the kitchen in here somehow, or also Virgil's friends, is on the attack to kill the Indian stealing. And the Indian turns as he is somehow not brown, but black too, most of his teeth missing, and those there are broken after his being beaten. But like in the terror point of all horror movies, the Indian, though bloody-faced, does not die. Fire alarms go off and sprinklers soak the entire restaurant, because as the Indian's being hit in the mouth by the bat, he pulls the fire alarm and by extension somehow also tugs out the eyes of those Blacks on Blacks who try to kill him. And the Blacks on Blacks tugged out eyes simultaneously set off the sprinklers, water spraying everywhere, the confusion enough to wake Virgil into his writing. As much as he's led by the chaos, Virgil is also led to the death of F. Gut L on Dead Men Talking, Eternal Neighbors, where after a risky hernia operation, she came home from elective surgery only to lose control of her bowels. The day she died, her now ghost white husband held up her 300-pound body before she squatted, then fell to the floor, shaking her head no to her last breath after he begged, "Can you make it, baby?" In a teaser before F. Gut L's autopsy, brown-haired, semi-curly Bob Flyback's brunette boy autopsy boater doctor's assistant says, obviously it doesn't smell like roses in there. I'm tired. I'm going to stop now. Don't stop. Don't stop. All right, I'll finish this. I never finish because I always feel like I bore myself with this language. Actually, I'm glutted. I feel like I'm glutted. Maybe it's like that in testimonial. Well, there's only a little bit more. There's only, it's almost done. It's only one, it's like half a page. Oh, finale. Whoop. Oh, I'm going to make it through a story. Oh, okay, hold on. You almost made it.
I'm so proud of you, Ronaldo. You almost made it through an entire story. Soon you'll move beyond step 1 into step 2, or maybe even distinguished professor. One day you'll make it and you'll look just like them. Just like them? Don't you mean just like me? No, just like them. Just like us. The shine of our lights. The future is here and now. I want you to move beyond step 1. You thought this morning that you should get a sweatshirt with the number 1 on the back because you barely made it to full. Ha ha ha!
Later, her masked face and cameras trained over F. Gut L's body, snapping evidence from atop a platform. Yeah, that's pus. Smells like pus or poop. I don't know which. The episode's final medical mystery is solved as brunette boy autopsy boater's doctor's first incision, perforated abdomen, septic shock. We're back at the heart, blood poisoned by her own waste. At what point was Blacks on Blacks fried chicken stolen? When the wooden bat hits the Indian head and his face turns to reveal his decimated mouth, Virgil realizes the chef at Crown Point, sweet Shamar cook who looks like a boy, who makes sure Virgil has boiled water for his tea, where the automatic hot water machine spout was too complicated to figure out, dead bodies congeal in Virgil's memory. But in the dream, those beating and being beaten, pulling Virgil from sleep, are irrepressibly alive. Their urgency to be captured is revealed in the breach in sweet Shamar Cook, who looks like a boy's mouth, where many of his teeth are gone too. Though smiling and kind, however absent, they are reparative, as the workbenches saw. It's muffled buzzing in the basement down the stairs just off the porch outside of Virgil and Butch's room. Virgil listens to that sound too. Then the stone fountain's starting rush, its white water spouting out, its whipping, flicking fall. Watch this last little bit, and then you just watch the last minute, and then it'll be fun. Slow. I like it this way when it happens. He's coming out to play. Thank you very much. It's a lot of fun.
Well, that was a poetry concert for the ages. Thank you, everyone. Please visit Harvard Bookstore in the back and buy some poetry books.